Welcome back, my emotionally curious chaos goblins, to the channel Lying Whispers.
Yes.
This is that corner of the internet where we drink coffee, judge strangers, and pretend just for a second that this could never happen to us. Spoiler alert, my friends. It absolutely could. So get comfortable. Actually, no, grab a coffee and follow this absurd story with me. Trust me, you're gonna need caffeine for this one. Stick with me, my friends, because this story doesn't start loud. It doesn't start messy. It starts quiet, and that's what makes it dangerous. She always tells it like she's confessing something she promised herself she'd never say out loud. No names. Never names. Not because she's classy, but because there's still a tiny part of her that feels embarrassed for being happy for so long without realizing it was all decorated lies. The narrator, yes, me met him in the before version of his life. Back when he believed marriage was a shelter. Back when the word home meant loyalty, shared jokes, and boring Sundays that in hindsight were a luxury. He was that kind of man. The kind who doesn't suspect. Not because he's naive, no, my friends, but because he's good. And we all know how that usually ends. He married young. Not impulsively. Not out of pressure. He married because he was in love. The comfortable kind of love. The one that doesn't need fireworks every Tuesday night to feel real. She was magnetic. The type of woman who walks into a room and the energy subtly shifts. Not magazine cover perfect, but with that dangerous laugh, the one that makes you feel chosen. They built the life. A real one. A house. Routines. Arguments over dumb things. Quick apologies.
Kids. 2 of them.
And pause right here, my friends, because the moment kids enter the story, the emotional damage multiplier activates. Years passed. Not measured by anniversaries anymore, but by, remember when the kids still took naps? And through all those years, he had a best friend. Oh yes. Here comes the premium grade disaster. The best friend was there before the marriage. Before the kids. Before he even believed life could break in such creative ways. They were inseparable. Chosen brothers. The kind of friendship that survives moves, job changes, bad decisions, and long silences. That friend was the best man at the wedding. That friend held one of the babies at the hospital. That friend was in every important photo. And if you're thinking right now, please don't tell me. Relax. I'll tell you. Just not yet. Because the cruelest part of the story isn't the betrayal. It's how normal everything looked while it was happening. She started changing, but not dramatically. No phone hiding. No suspicious schedules. No unfamiliar perfume. It was subtler than that. Cleaner. More dangerous. She became distant. Not cold. Just absent. Like she was always thinking about something else. Like she listened just enough to respond, but not enough to stay. He did what functional adults with jobs, stress, and 2 kids do. He rationalized. She's tired. We're in a rut. This is just marriage after a while. Because that's what we do, my friends. We justify red flags, so we don't have to lift the rug. The best friend started showing up more often. Always with reasonable excuses. Helping with something. A quick beer. Just stopping by. Nothing suspicious. Nothing alarming. And here comes the irony jackpot. He trusted his best friend more than anyone else on the planet. Imagine that. Trusting blindly, the 2 people actively rewriting your reality behind your back. Poetic.
Disgusting. But poetic.
There's one moment the narrator never forgets. A random night. Yellow kitchen light.
Kids asleep.
She was laughing with the best friend over something he didn't quite hear. It wasn't jealousy. It was that weird sensation. Like walking into a room where the conversation stops half a second too late. He ignored it. Because good men ignore those things. Because they don't want to be paranoid. Because they don't want to become the villain in a story they don't yet realize they're starring in. Months passed, then years. Life kept moving. Birthdays, family photos, vacations full of smiles. And listen carefully, my friends. Betrayal doesn't always look ugly while it's happening. Sometimes it looks exactly like happiness. He never searched, never checked, never truly doubted, until the truth stopped asking for permission.
But not yet. And if you're thinking,
how did he not see it sooner? Hold that thought, because when we get there, you might ask something worse. Would you have seen it? Stick with me, because this isn't just a betrayal. It's a slow demolition. It's a slow demolition, not the kind with explosions and sirens. No drama for the neighbors. Just cracks forming quietly, one after another, until the structure looks fine from the outside but won't survive a strong wind. After that realization settled in, he changed, not on purpose, not dramatically. He simply became more aware. And awareness, my friends, is a curse once you can't turn it off. He started noticing the pauses, the half-second delays before she answered simple questions, the way her smile arrived late when he walked into a room. Little things, annoying things, things you only notice when your brain is already screaming, pay attention. She used to tell him everything. Work drama, random thoughts, useless stories. Now she shared selectively. And nothing makes a partner feel smaller than realizing they're no longer the default person. The best friend began orbiting differently. Still present, but strategically so. Never alone with him anymore. Always with someone else around. Always with an exit plan. Less eye contact. More forced laughs. Guilt has a posture, my friends. And once you recognize it, you see it everywhere. He didn't confront anyone yet. Not because he was afraid, but because he needed certainty. Because once you say the words out loud, you can't put them back. And deep down, he still hoped he was wrong. Hope is sneaky like that. It convinces you to stay quiet while it slowly rearranges your expectations. One night, very late, she was on the couch again, phone in hand, laughing softly. That laugh. Not the family laugh. Not the polite laugh. The private one. He asked casually, "Everything okay?" She looked up too fast.
Yeah. Why?
Yes. That answer. The one that answers nothing. He sat down next to her, close enough to feel the distance. And for a brief second, just one guilt crossed her face. There it was. Gone almost immediately. But not fast enough. From that moment on, sleep became optional. He replayed conversations, reread memories, reinterpreted moments had once considered harmless. And the worst part? Nothing felt new. Everything felt overdue. Then came the comment, the careless one, the kind that slips out without intent but lands like a grenade. Someone joked, casually, "You two have really been in sync lately." Silence. A silence so thick it announced itself. She smiled. The best friend cleared his throat. And the topic changed too quickly. And in that moment his body knew. His brain still fought it. But his body already understood. That night he didn't sleep. Not because he lacked proof, but because certainty had arrived without paperwork. And that's when he did something he'd never done before. He looked. Not aggressively. Not desperately. Calmly. The phone was charging on the counter. Unlocked. No panic. No shaking hands. Just quiet focus. And no, my friends, there were no explicit photos. No obvious messages. What he found was worse. Long conversations. Daily conversations. Intimate conversations. The kind that start with, "I just needed to tell you this," and end with, "Don't tell anyone, especially not him." And let me be very clear here. Emotional intimacy that belongs to your partner but is given to someone else, That's betrayal. Sometimes the deepest kind. The name at the top of the screen burned. His best friend. The man who stood beside him at his wedding. Who held his children. Who called him brother. He didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't throw the phone.
He sat down.
And in that silence, something inside him died politely. The next morning, she acted normal. Breakfast. Routine. A quick kiss. Like there wasn't a fire quietly consuming everything. He looked at her and realized something terrifying. The woman he loved no longer existed. Or maybe she never existed the way he believed.
He didn't confront her that day.
Or the next. Because once you know the truth, my friends, there's no rush. Rush is for people who still have hope. He watched instead. And the more he watched, the clearer it became. The looks. The pauses. The shared smiles. It had all been there. Always. And once that realization settled in, it poisoned every memory retroactively. Every laugh now had an echo. Every I love you felt conditional. Every shared moment replayed itself with a new, uglier subtitle running underneath. He started living two lives at the same time. The visible one? Functional. Polite. Responsible. Dad, who packs lunches. Husband who shows up. Friend who nods. The internal one? A slow psychological collapse performed in silence. Because when betrayal doesn't explode, it corrodes. He watched her differently now. Not with suspicion. With study. Like a scientist observing a phenomenon that had already proven fatal. He noticed how she leaned slightly away from him on the couch. How her phone never left her hand anymore. How she seemed lighter after talking to someone else and heavier around him. And that's when the real humiliation hit.
She wasn't unhappy.
She was fulfilled. Just not by him. The best friend became careful. Painfully careful. He stopped calling as much. Stopped suggesting plans that involved the two of them alone. Started keeping conversations shallow.
Too shallow.
People don't suddenly become distant for no reason, my friends. They become distant when proximity feels dangerous. Guilt changes behavior. Fear sharpens it. He thought about confronting her every single day. Sometimes in the shower. Sometimes while driving. Sometimes while watching her help the kids with homework like she hadn't detonated his life. He rehearsed speeches that never left his mouth. Angry ones. Calm ones. Devastatingly honest ones. And every time, the same question stopped him. What if she lies? Because once someone has practiced deception long enough, truth becomes optional. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just irreversible. They were sitting at the table. Bills spread out. Kids arguing in the background. Normal life. She casually mentioned that the best friend had stopped by earlier that day. Casually. Like it was nothing. And that's when he realized something terrifying. She wasn't afraid anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was confident he wouldn't challenge her. And confidence like that only comes from one thing. Contempt. That night, after the kids were asleep, he finally spoke. Not loudly. Not emotionally. Too calmly. I talked to him. The words hung in the air. She froze. Not confused. Not surprised. Frozen. And my friend's silence is the loudest confession there is. She tried to recover. Asked what he meant. Tried to sound casual. But her voice cracked at the edges. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't accuse. He just said,
Don't.
One word. Enough. What followed wasn't a fight. It was an autopsy.
She cried.
Eventually. Said she hadn't planned it. Said it just happened. Said she felt lonely.
Ah, yes.
The holy trinity of cheater excuses. Loneliness. Confusion. Accidental intimacy. As if months, years of emotional investment occur by slipping on a banana peel. He asked one question. Only one.
How long?
She hesitated. And that hesitation told him everything. Because people who regret their actions answer quickly. People who regret being caught stall. When she finally spoke, the timeline didn't matter anymore. Too long was still too long. The kids were asleep upstairs. Unaware.
Safe for now.
And in that moment, something shifted in him. This wasn't about anger anymore, or jealousy, or even betrayal. This was about dignity. She begged, promised to cut contact, swore it meant nothing, said she chose him. But here's the thing, my friends. You don't get to choose someone after you've repeatedly chosen someone else. That's not love. That's damage control. They tried to fix it. Therapy, conversations, careful optimism. But trust, once shattered, doesn't rebuild. It surveils. Every late text became a question. Every smile became a calculation. Love turned into vigilance. And that's when he knew this marriage could survive. But he wouldn't. The separation was quiet. No screaming lawyers. No public drama. Just two people admitting that the version of them that worked was already dead. The kids adjusted faster than expected. Because children don't need perfect families. They need honest ones. Months later, someone asked him if he regretted not confronting her sooner. He thought about it. Longer than expected. Then said, I think I found out exactly when I was supposed to. Just late enough to know I couldn't stay. And now I ask you, my friends, is emotional betrayal as damaging as physical betrayal? Would you stay for the kids? Or would you leave to save the parts of yourself that still recognize right from wrong? Comment. I want to know. Because stories like this don't just entertain us. They warn us. And sometimes, they save us from ignoring what's been there all along. Always.